My name is Renee and welcome to Pike Creek Farm. Today I'm going to do a canning video. I am going to take you along as I am canning ground beef for the first time ever. I've done other proteins but never the ground meat. And I had a good deal from a local friend who raises beef, and with the prices going up, I was able to get quite a bit. So I'm doing 10 pounds today to put in jars, and the rest is in our freezer. And between that and the venison that my husband got last fall, we're in pretty good shape when it comes to red meat. So I'm going to start first by opening up all the packages of ground beef, and I'm going to brown them on the outside. They don't have to be done fully in my electric roaster. That's the easiest way for me to get 10 pounds done at once rather than, using a pan multiple times. So I'm going to get started with that now, and thank you for being here. And if you like this video, push like, and if you want to see more like this or cooking videos, push subscribe. Thank you. I have already washed everything. I have my canner ready. I'll show you that later, my pressure canner. I have my jars in the dishwasher getting sanitized. So now I just have to get this ground beef going, and I'll brown it all in here, and that way I can get any grease out of it pretty easily. Before I start any canning project, I get my kitchen clean. I do any dishes that are done in the sink or anywhere. I wipe off all the counters, and I have everything cleared, so it's easy for me to get what I need and not be stalled by something in my way or dishes in the sink when I need to wash something. And I make sure everything is really sanitized. So once I'm done doing this, I'm gonna go wash my hands really well with hot water and soap. The reason I'm looking forward to having the ground beef in jars is, when I come home from work sometimes, I'm just tired. And this will be very convenient to make tacos, enchiladas, burritos, spaghetti, hamburger gravy, stuffed peppers. There's a variety of things, and just to have that convenience of opening the jar. I am not going to season this meat. I am going to season it as I go to use it, depending on what flavor profile I want. If I want Mexican, if I want, if I'm doing chili, if I'm doing Italian, if I'm doing any other flavor that I want. I was really happy though when my friend asked me if I wanted any beef, and the price was really good and the quality is really good, so I jumped at the opportunity. So I'm gonna take a break and wash my hands. Okay, I have everything is cleaned up now, and the sink's all washed out again. My hands are all clean, so now it's just a matter of cooking this ground beef and breaking it up. I am using this tool from Pampered Chef. If you've ever been to a Pampered Chef party, it is one of the best things you can buy there. I use it all the time. I've purchased them for presents for my 3 children. It just makes breaking up any ground meat a lot easier. I also use it to make graham cracker crumbs. If I have a crust I'm gonna make and I have packages of regular graham crackers, I put this in like a quart jar or some kind of a deep measuring cup, and you just break it up like this. The ends are actually very sharp. It's all plastic, so it's not sharp like a knife, but it is sharp, and it will break up anything into crumbs. So I'm gonna keep on mixing this up and letting it get so that there really isn't any red left. It doesn't have to be totally cooked. And what I'm following for the directions is this book from the USDA, The Complete Guide to Home Canning. I also have 3 different ball books, but they all give the same direction for how to do ground or chopped meat. And you can do bear, beef, lamb, pork, sausage, veal, or venison. And you can even make this into patties and can the patties, so like for Salisbury steak. So you just need to cook until lightly browned. Ground meat may be sauteed without shaping. Remove any excess fat, and then you fill the hot jars with the pieces. Then you add boiling meat broth, tomato juice, or water. I have some water that I heated up that I've added some better than bouillon to. I don't have any home canned beef broth right now. I don't think I would do it in my burger because it seems like not the best use of bone broth. Then you do it to 1-inch headspace, and you have to remove the air bubbles, and you put the lids on. And you can add salt or any other dry seasonings. I'm not going to add any salt because with the bouillon, I don't think it will need it. And I'd rather add salt when I'm cooking with it. I'd like to have a little more control, I guess, over it. So we will just keep working on getting this meat cooked so that it is no longer bright red and it's broken up into pieces. And when I come back, I'll show you how it looks at that point and see if there's excess grease that we need to drain, or if I can just use a slotted spoon. I do have my jars going through a rinse cycle right now. I already washed them in the dishwasher, so I'm just doing the rinse cycle to get them so they're hot when I need them. I have my canner, my pressure canner on the stove right now with the water just starting to heat up so that it's not going to be ice cold water. And I have the bouillon cooking. So it'll be hot jars, hot meat, hot broth, and hot water in the canner. So no thermal shock. Okay, I am back, and the meat is almost done. It's still pinkish if you look at it closely. It's not where I would want to eat it yet. Let me see if I can show it to you. But it is par cooked, not fully cooked. I also have my canner all set to go. I have checked that the gasket is okay, that the lock, nothing is sticking, it's freely moving, that the pressure safety plug there is not dry or cracked or anything, that the gasket inside is not dry, and that nothing is plugging this steam hole here. So you want the steam hole, the overpressure gasket, and the lock to be all free. Now I have my stove on so that the water is heating up. My stove is a flat top stove, and so when I moved in here and that was the stove I had, we replaced every other appliance in this house except for the stove. It was the only thing that we didn't have to replace, so we didn't want to buy one if we didn't have to. I checked with the manufacturer, and the stove does allow for a pressure canning or water bath canning on it. That's something important to check if you have a flat top stove. And then when I was looking into buying a pressure canner, I did a lot of research and watched a lot of videos, and the canner I ended up with is a 23-quart pressure canner that is good for all kinds of stoves. It has a stainless steel flat bottom, so it works on convection, I think that's what they're called, and it works on the flat top stoves. because you have to have a totally flat bottom on my stove for things to heat properly. And that stainless steel disc on the bottom there spreads the heat evenly, which the flat stoves aren't real good at doing that normally. So that takes care of that issue. And I haven't had any problems at all. And I never feel like I'm risking the surface of my stove. I don't slide it on the stove because that would, cause a lot of scratching and not make it look so great. So I'm cautious with it. What I'm doing now is filling my jars. I have this funnel. My jars are still warm. I've checked to make sure that there's no chips or anything on the top because that would prevent a good seal. So we're gonna start filling them now. And you want to get a 1-inch headspace. And what that means is the solids in the jar, or even the liquids, can only come up to 1 inch. And 1 inch is this bar right here. I am using smallmouth jars today. A lot of times with my meat, I will try and use wide mouth, but today I grabbed 10 regular jars. So once it gets pretty full, you have to condense it all down. You don't want any big air spaces. So as you can see, I can still add more. So let me add some more. Let's see. So now I am going to add the liquid. And what I am adding is broth that I made with Better Than bouillon and water. You can use tomato juice. You can use just boiling water in this. I felt that this would give more flavor to the meat, or at least I'm hoping. Like I said, this is my first time canning ground meat, but I love taco salads for lunch and quick meals like that. Gonna add a little bit more. And this is my debubbler. It also has these here to measure how far, so I can see that it's 1 inch headspace, and it's marked on here that goes from 1 inch down to 1/4 inch. So I'm going to debubble it one more time. And then I have a little bowl of vinegar and a paper towel. And I'm going to wipe the rim off because any grease from the meat or any little specks of meat will prevent the lid from sealing. And then I'm going to put the lid on. And put on my ring. You don't want to tighten the ring really tight or you will buckle your lids. The air can't escape and the lids will buckle when they're under pressure. So you just want to go till it stops. So I'm going to set this. And I'm going to keep filling the jars, and I'll bring you back when the canner is full to show you what's next. I think I forgot to mention that my canner calls for 3 quarts of water, so I have put in 3 quarts of water that is heating up right now. Follow the directions for your pressure canner. I'm not sure what how much it says for an All-American or any of the other brands, but for mine it says 3 quarts, so I just pour 3 quarts of water in. It's not like water bath canning where the water has to come above the jars. So it just has to be down there at the bottom. You want enough so it doesn't go dry and it doesn't ruin your canner when the pressure all evacuates, when the air evacuates and it goes under pressure. I have the jars all filled with the meat, and I debubbled, but now I'm adding in the broth. So I'll have to debubble again, and then wipe the rims and put in on the flats and then the rings. I ended up with 10 jars, which is what I was hoping for. Usually it's a pound of meat per jar. So for my family, that works out just perfect. There's a little too much in that one. There's only 2 of us. And if one of my kids are over or company, I can just take out another jar if I was making something. Something that I make, and I'll probably do a video on it, is a crock pot lasagna recipe that is super easy, and like the longest part actually is browning the meat. So this is not like your homemade from scratch lasagna, but you can use your home canned sauce or store-bought sauce, and it just cooks all afternoon when I'm at work. So I will have to use one of these jars in that. So I am just double checking that these rims have been wiped, that there's no grease on them. I have vinegar, a little bowl of vinegar that I am dipping my towel in. I used to always just use water, and then when I started watching videos and reading about doing meat, they all said to use vinegar, and that made a lot of sense. You know, it cuts through the grease better, and if there's grease on that rim, well, then it's not going to seal. And you don't want to go to all this work and not have the jar seal. And I mean, we all have failures that way. It does happen. You put that one in the fridge and you use it within a couple of days. If you noticed, the lids I'm putting on just to finger tight, just when it wants to stop. I don't keep pushing it past that. I'm not sure if I'd want my husband to do this for me. He has a tendency to put everything on really tight. So I'm going to put these in the canner. I'm going to add the liquid to the rest. Got too much in that one. Let me get another jar here. Let's poke it and see if it goes down, but I think we're gonna have to take some out of there. Yeah, that one is too full. The headspace is really important, so we want to make sure that we pay attention to that. I was looking up instead of looking down. There. Okay. Debubble, debubble, debubble. You go down all the sides, go in the middle, go all around to make sure there's no air bubbles in there. Wipe the rim nice and clean. Put the flat on. These lids I'm using are 4 jars, and it's American made company. And I learned about them from Lisa at Sutton's Days, and she had the owner of the company on there, And she's been very happy with them, and I see her repeated success using them. So with canning lids being sometimes difficult to find, and I know last summer I struggled, I grabbed some already for this year, and I'm going to probably grab some more. They come in packs. I got them in packs of 100, and I'm going to get some more wide mouth and regular mouth. Okay, got that wiped off. And finger tight. Another jar ready. Okay, so now I have my lid, which I had checked already. I showed you how to check for, make sure the vent is free, nothing plugging it, that the lock is loose, that the seal and the plug are all good, no cracks or anything. And with mine, you line up the arrows. There's an arrow on the handle and an arrow on the lid. So I just line those up and it goes down. Took me forever to get that to work right. It was like a jigsaw puzzle for me or something. It wasn't like it came real easy for me to get that lid to line up. Don't know why. It's 2 arrows. It shouldn't be that difficult. And now I twist it and it's locked. It's locked. It's a good seal. Everything's good. So now I will turn my burner on and up higher so that it can build up and come to pressure. So what's going to happen is I wait till out that vent hole, there is a lot of steam coming, like a freight train, steam engine, lots of steam. And then I put my timer on for 10 minutes and let it vent for 10 minutes. And that gets all the excess air out. And I don't understand all the science of this, but it is a science. It is physics. The steam comes out, and then I will put on this weight. You can either use your gauge, and there's a different kind of a weight that you put on, or I like doing the jiggler. It's, for my elevation, it is 10 pounds of weight, and I will just stick that on there when it's time. And then for pints with meat, it is 75 minutes that I'll set my timer for. Then I come and I turn the stove off, let the pressure come down, let the lock drop down naturally. Then I wait, like 10 more minutes. I always follow, I have a sheet that I'll show you that I follow the directions from one of the books, and I just read those directions every time. And actually it's online. But then once that's done, I will take off the lid and let it sit before I take the jars out. Let them get used to the air. I don't want any thermal shock if I take them from this warm out to the cooler air. I don't want any issues that way. I don't want it to siphon. It will start boiling and the juices will come out, and the seal is probably not going to be good then. So now we just have to wait. My canner is steaming. I don't know if you can see it very well. I'm trying to hold this pot holder up, but it is steaming. I have my timer set on 10 minutes. My lid has locked. That just popped up, right like when my canner starts to steam a lot out the vent is when my latch goes up. So now 10 minutes, and then I will put the weight on. My timer went off, so I'm going to put my 10-pound weight on. And now I have to wait for it to start rocking back and forth. I don't want it to go crazy. I want it to be more like a hula dance, is how they always describe it. So then I will turn my heat down till I get to that sweet point. And once it starts doing that, I set my timer for 75 minutes for pints. If this had been quarts, it would have been 90 minutes. So, on to the next phase, just gotta wait. Okay, it is starting to do the hula. So I adjust the heat. I have to turn it down some. There's like a sweet spot I've learned to keep it just doing the right thing and not picking up speed. Now, my pressure gauge is on 11 pounds, but I don't go by that. When you use the jiggler weight, you go by that. My timer went off and I have waited until all pressure is gone and the lock is down. So now I can take off the weight. And it didn't make any sound. Nothing escaped. I don't hear anything inside the canner. So that's a good sign that I'm not going to have any issues. So now I'm going to take the lid off, unlock it and take it off and let it sit for 10 minutes. Here's the lid off and the jars. You can see they're still boiling away. Nothing has sealed yet. Sometimes they're sealed when I open up the lid, so I'm hoping everything is okay, but they'll start. Taking the jars out now. Here they are. They will all settle after time. They're boiling away. I've heard a few pings. And here is the last jar. So I have them all here. And you don't want them to be too close. You want the air to get in between the jars. And you don't want to touch them now. You don't want to touch them until tomorrow. So here's my jars. There they are. Here's my jar. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today on my canning adventure, for doing something for the first time, canned ground beef. And if you want to see me when I use one of these jars in a recipe, I'm thinking crock pot lasagna, push the subscribe button and you'll be able to see when I actually use it, and I'll share the recipe. Push the like button for this video if you liked it. It really helps me to know. And earlier in the video, I asked about if anyone has a good canned Sloppy Joe sauce recipe. If you do, let me know or give a link to one, because it's something that I think I'd like to add to my pantry. Thank you, everyone, for coming to Pike Creek Farm today.